Thank you very much, everybody, for being here. What a great group of activists we have here, and I had some great conversations with John about where we're going here. So, you know, one of the distinctions I like to see happening, one of the distinctions I like unfortunately see is the distinction between killing people in war and killing people when you're not in war. So if somebody videotapes somebody who was murdering somebody on the street, like we had with George Floyd, everybody seems to understand that that video should be released to the public, and the person who killed somebody should be prosecuted. But if that same killing happens during an act of war by a soldier, that somehow war is different than murder. And I've spent a lot of my years saying that that war is really mass murder, and you have to treat a war as murder. And if you start thinking like that, videotaping murder it becomes more obvious that people like Julian should be protected. So my little remarks here is let's recognize how immoral, how crazy war is, and let's treat it like murder and go from there. Thank you.
Gabriel. Gabriel, would you like to speak, or John?
Yeah, I can say a few things. Thanks everyone for coming. I don't want to sort of repeat myself from earlier today, but you know, I guess John and I at sort of the end of every, you know, between our stops on this trip, we've been going since the beginning of May. We started off in Miami and worked our way to Milwaukee, Wisconsin today, and then we're just sort of moving west. But yeah, this sort of observation that we have at the end of the day, and it's this sort of the irony that we see that we're traveling the country, traveling the United States, trying to convince Americans to stand up for their democratic rights. We're just two Aussie blokes sort of roaming around, raising money as we go and doing this stuff and just trying to convince people that this isn't about just Julian. This is about everybody's democratic rights, everybody's First Amendment, everybody's right to know what their elected representatives do in their name. I think what we're seeing as we move across the country is that there's this outpouring of support, and the media is paying more attention. I was saying today that we've been on 2 national news channels. There's over 20 articles. People in the New York Times are speaking about this again. USA Today is speaking about this. Newsweek, and all this stuff is happening. So it really feels like we're getting some momentum, and that there is some change. So it's just that's really heartening. Just to follow on that, really, Julian is the victim in this case. The people who committed the corruption, who lied to the public, who committed these war crimes that Julian exposed, all walk around and do whatever they like. They can go home to their families. They can go for a play in the park or a walk or by the river or whatever. But Julian, because he's exposed these people, he's been persecuted for these last 12 years. And this is his 3rd year in the maximum security prison. He hasn't been sentenced. He's just an innocent man in prison, in this sort of never-ending limbo. We don't even know when there'll be another hearing or an appeal. It's been sort of 6 months just waiting on that. So it's just important to focus on that Julian is the victim in this, and the people who actually committed the crimes are still walking free. Thanks.
Anne said I had to say something. You know, in human affairs, you've got to grind up a whole lot of ore to get gold. And that's what we do. And one of those flecks of gold is in the possession of the people of the United States. It take a lot, thousands of years to get to it, to that understanding. Well, what is this fleck of gold? Well, it's the First Amendment and the Bill of Rights. Everybody in Europe, of course, has adapted that into their national legislation now, but not in Australia just yet. The Bill of Rights and the First Amendment. The governments, of course, have their own self-concerns, and one of those concerns is to evade, in some way or other, the inspection of the populace of their policies, and also to percolate out their own policies and deceive the public in the application of those policies. It's quite common. Governments are self-concerned. The Bill of Rights and the First Amendment allows us a shield between the government ourselves. The first great shield took a long time to get. It was the Magna Carta. And the Magna Carta put a shield between the sovereign, or if you like, the state, and the people. And it's a two-way shield. The government has to obey those laws, and we have to obey them. And the adjudication of those laws is done in a competitive environment in the court where each side is equally armed. It's called due process. Very, very great discovery. Took thousands of years to grind all that ore up for that bar of gold, the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment. Copied all over the world. Now the understanding in the First Amendment is that with the participation of the people, the quality of government and the quality of the people improves because we have information. The great poet Percy Bysshe Shelley, in his poem Prometheus Unbound, makes this assertion, that the road to freedom only comes with knowledge. It only comes with knowledge. So getting at knowledge and accumulating it in the society, amongst your friends, in occasions like this, where we sit down and have a chat with each other and exchange views and build within ourselves an understanding of life, and more able to go to our children or our friends and say, well, it doesn't look quite like that, and they reply, oh well, and so we moderate our views and accumulate a deeper knowledge of how things are and how to become, that is the constants of becoming in a day-to-day life, how to become more at ease and a deeper understanding of the flow of time and life. A beautiful thing. It was first done in the United States in the writing of the Constitution, 1793, I think. First done here. And this gold bar that you people have is an example to the world. You've got to hang on to it, because they take it from you, because they're in a rush to get this one. They have their little meetings and, they have the institutional power. Institutional power is really helpful because human beings are nervous creatures, and we can run amok quite easily, as you've seen in 200 cities in the United States over the crass administration of the over the, I don't like to insult people, so over the Trump administration. So we're quite nervous. So institutions provide us with a slow-moving change, and I think the capacity to exchange amongst ourselves. When those institutions become awkward, or the common word is corrupt, then it's time to ask and insist that they be repealed. And so it is with the First Amendment. Just one other thing. Another golden moment in human affairs was in 1948, when they got together. The first president of the United Nations, by the way, is a chap by the name of Herbert Ver Everett. He's an Australian. I'm very proud of him. I say it again, he's an Australian. Herbert Ver Everett. And because Australia is a small country, the quality of the United Nations accommodated a lot of small countries, so you have the General Assembly able to pass recommendations and regulations and so on. In 1973, under the auspices of the Australian government at the time, the United Nations accepted the Conventions of Asylum. And that is the understanding amongst nations and amongst us that people get into trouble and they may be politically active and the government may react firmly against them, so they need asylum. They may not be wrong in their understanding. And a consequence of that, we extend asylum to each other. At 1973, there were 10,000 Chileans in missions, that's an embassy, in Santiago that were being pursued by the Pinochet government. And they were offered succour and asylum. Julian Assange was given asylum by the Ecuadorian government. The asylum is not given easily, you know. You have to be, there's pros and cons, and it's examined, and asylum is extended, and it's a quality. That asylum was removed and under circumstances which are questionable, a misfeasance and a malfeasance, and Julian was dragged from the embassy and is where he is today in Belmarsh prison. We're moving towards the 13th year. There's a lot of suffering in the world, so I don't want to, say my son is suffering, or sort of emotional quality. What I do want to say is that in the positive, all of these qualities that have percolated up through thousands of years of understanding of us speaking to each other and acknowledging each other has arrived at the United Nations and the First Amendment and the Bill of Rights. Beautiful, beautiful things which we must treasure. And that will bring Julian's freedom, and also the freedom, the continuing freedom for me to rabbit on in front of you and say this, that and the other, and you to speak to me and say, well, that's not quite right, and you're a bit over the top there, or whatever. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking this of your weekend's leisure and coming here. Thank you.
I just again want to thank John and Gabriel for being here with us tonight, and please enjoy. I know it's getting a little chilly. It's nice that it's getting chilly. Everything's so hot. But stay as long as you like, and help yourself to more beverages. And I hope that out of these conversations that there can be change in some of these institutions that we have that will act in order to secure justice. Thank you all so much.
Before we all submit, we obviously owe a tremendous amount of gratitude to John, Gabriel, Mills for giving us all their time and attention to come to this great, but not the biggest city in the world, Milwaukee. But I don't know how many hundreds of hours Ann has put in to organizing this event, organizing the store, organizing management, organizing dinner for us all. So if you haven't had a chance to contribute a little bit financially tonight, please consider doing so. And if you don't do it tonight, send her a check. Because these things are not too easy. We're so honored to get to know someone like that who has the ability to put some time into this. And we need to support each other. So thank you very much.